record it?
Being recorded.
All right. Well, welcome everybody. Thank you so much for joining us at this sneak peek, this exclusive look at what's gone on with the desert purple martins in spring migration slash turned out to be more like summer migration of 2026 for the desert purple martins and their low-tech satellite trackers helping us reveal information about what's going on with the migration of these birds. So go ahead and share my screen. I'm Jenny McFarland. I'm with Tucson Bird Alliance. We also have Erica here, and then some of our wonderful donors who made this possible that we could even do this project. So thank you all so much. But I just wanted to just briefly review a little bit of what you already know about the martins. Then we'll get into the weeds of what happened with the trackers. And this is going to be a far more detailed look than I've given any other presentation because this is exclusively about this. And also, you're seeing the information before anyone else, and in a way where it's all sort of together. So, desert purple martins, they are a distinct subspecies. They're not a full species yet. We are working with partners. A lot of different partners are going to come up as we talk about this project. And one of the main partners we're working with is Tori Wiley. She's out of Northern Arizona University, and she's doing helping us catch martins, put trackers on martins, as well as doing a genetics study on these birds. So that's happening in a totally separate wing of everything. And there's a lot of preliminary evidence that they should be their own species. Their genetics are quite different. Doesn't surprise me. Everything about them's different. They're smaller, the females are paler, their migration's totally different, their breeding's totally different, and it turns out their genetics look pretty different too. So that'll all be happening in the future, hopefully submitting for a split on this species. But for right now, they're still considered purple martins. It's a subspecies desert purple martin, the ones who nest in saguaros and cardone cacti, as opposed to the eastern purple martin, kind of the main population of eastern purple martins or purple martins that live in the east that use those gourds or those giant sort of hotel style birdhouses with like 30 different ports in them that many people are familiar with. There's also the forest purple martins that are in very patchy locations in the Pacific Northwest, as well as kind of the Mogollon Rim. You can get them up in Flagstaff in Arizona, a Sholo area, parts of New Mexico. That is going to be relevant to our discussion, these forest purple martins as well. So the saguaro ones are fabulous. The desert purple martins, they nest in saguaros. They bring, like you can see one right there behind Jim's head. They bring food to the babies in their saguaro nest. They use basically, if you're familiar with a saguaro boot, those are inside of saguaros. They're old woodpecker nests, and these birds nest in them. But they don't use the entire range of saguaros. These birds nest exclusively in Sonoran Desert with large columnar cacti, but it has to be kind of the luscious sections of Sonoran Desert. They're using a little bit north of Tucson, not too far north of Tucson. They don't go all the way up to Phoenix. It's too dry up there. So they don't even use the whole range of Sonoran Desert, and they're restricted to this subset of Sonoran Desert with saguaros and large cardone. So this is what prime desert purple martin habitat looks like. I took this video in Sahuarita. There's martins flying around. They like areas of lush desert. This is during the monsoon, and big saguaros. That really is a key for them. Really large cactuses that have lots of holes and suitable cavities for them. As the camera turns here, it will show one of the saguaros this giant one here on the right, that is an active nesting saguaro in Sahuarita. So this is like their prime habitat. Such cool birds, such a fun bird to be studying. That one too. They also nest in that one. It's a really big colony. Now in Baja, Mexico, off the Gulf of California, you do have another big population of breeding desert purple martins that nest in the cardones, which are big cactuses that look a lot like saguaros, but big. They're huge. If you've ever seen a cardone in person, they can be enormous. They branch closer to the ground. They look kind of like if a Oregon pipe and a saguaro had a baby. Huge cactuses. And they nest in these as well, which is also going to be very relevant on watching the birds travel north from Brazil. So in 2024, we did our first try at doing satellite trackers. We caught a few birds here in Arizona, caught one particularly on the San Pedro River near the town of Mammoth as they came into this pond roosting area. I got these trackers on them. That's what they look like. Lotek satellite trackers, little tiny device that has a satellite capability as well as a solar panel and a very thin whippy antenna. That's what they look like on the bird. This is one of the females we caught in 2024 at her nesting saguaro. And you can see the tracker on her back and the little antenna trailing behind. And that first summer, we caught a few birds of 2024, released them, off they went. One of them stopped working. They have to be so lightweight to meet the federal requirements for such a small bird that they they can be kind of prone to breaking. They have to use the smallest, thinnest antenna they have to make sure it's safe for the birds. So they do sometimes break them. So she ripped off her antenna is what the code came back as. But the other two birds went all the way through Mexico, down through Central America. She did not make it past the Andes, but the young male that we caught on the San Pedro River went all the way to the wintering ground, which was great because then it finally confirmed exactly where the desert purple martins winter. And we knew that by sort of winter, New Year-ish, a little bit past New Year of 2025. And then we had partners in Brazil. We do work with several, the University in Sao Paulo, several partners in Brazil that help us on the other end of where these birds spend most of the year in Brazil on their wintering grounds. And there's a whole group down there that does research specifically on purple martins. And they were been so great, and they helped us catch birds and put trackers on them to watch them go north again. And this happened last year, but then two of the birds made it all the way up to their breeding ground. Now these turned out to be forest purple martins, the other western purple martin subspecies, and one of them went all the way to Portland, Oregon, and the other made it to Vancouver Island. So the Portland bird it ended up here where it nested, and then the Vancouver Island bird went all the way up here. These birds were caught at the same tree together in Brazil and ended up in pretty different locations for nesting. That was by June of 2025. And the Portland bird, someone went and got a photo of it. It was a known nesting site, like nesting colony of gourds. And someone went and looked, and this was great to see because the Lotek company had been telling us whenever a tracker would fail, we'd inquire when it stopped sending signal, and they would tell us either, oh, it looks like there was a mortality event, which only happened a couple of times, but most of the time they'd say it looked like the device has just stopped working. Because if the birds mess with it too much, if they break the antenna, it just stops sending signal. And this device had failed, and we had inquired, and they said, well, it looks like it's a device failure. And then a few days later, someone gets a photo of the bird, and he's alive and well. So I was really glad to see that was actually correct, that the device did stop working. The bird was fine, especially once they reach the breeding grounds and they're going in and out of a cavity that can really mess up the antenna, apparently. And so then this last summer of 2025, we wanted to catch more birds in Arizona and put trackers on them. And this worked out kind of not really. So we found the roosting site. It's here in Sahuarita in the pecan groves. They use this particular patch of pecans where Continental and Nogales Highway meet, just south of that, on Continental Road. And it's right near the Green Valley Water Treatment Plant, if you're familiar with that birding site. So it makes sense. They come here and they do a lot of their pond activities, hitting the water, getting, preening, getting some bathing in, catching some dragonflies. And then they head over to the orchard here, pecan orchard. They gather in these big numbers and they go down into the trees to roost. So here's a short video showing that happening, almost like a murmuration, like starlings do, get in this big group, and then they funnel down into the pecan trees. They're highly social birds. They do like to roost together. They like to sleep together in just a tree or two, all jammed in to one, sort of safety in numbers. They're very wary of predators, and they sort of guard each other above as some drop down into the trees and then the rest of them go down. So it's a really cool thing to see. It's happening right now every evening in Sahuarita. So this is what it looks like when they come in, sort of coming in to roost. It's a great photo someone got of all the birds flying in. It's a huge mass of desert purple martins in one place. So the perfect place to try to catch them. They're flying in. They do it for about 15, 20 minutes. Go into roost, which is really cool. And these big numbers, as you get closer to sunset, the flock gets tighter and tighter and tighter before they start dropping into the trees, which is really cool. So our plan is this is what we tried last year, and we're going to do something very similar this year where we have our poles and our nets. When we know where they're roosting, you set it up during the day, and then you are set up to go when the birds come into the trees chaotically because they sort of just slam down in all directions. That's the plan is to go to the regular known roost site and have the net set up with a lot of people helping to try to catch these birds. Last year, it got all kind of topsy-turvy because the birds switched roosts at the last minute. Something set them off. We are planning for a lot more time this summer where we'll have much longer sessions, more options, more like blocks of time to get in there. So we're starting much earlier. We're going to start mid to late July trying to catch these birds, and they don't leave until early September. So to give ourselves a lot more time when unexpected things happen, like the birds switch up where they're roosting, which was a huge problem. But we still did try to catch them, and were unfortunately unsuccessful. But we did get out of it a really fun thing we did last summer that we're doing again this summer of these roost watch parties where we invited members and just the public to come out and join us and stand off of Continental Road basically and watch these purple martins, that spectacle that we got a video of the birds coming in to roost, but from the shoulder of the road. And these homeowners, the home we're standing in front of there off of Continental Road, are very, very nice and interested in the project. And we're more than happy. I spoke to them ahead of time. They were very happy to have people come and park here and watch these birds. So we're going to be doing that again this summer. I already did one up at Mammoth, a roost watch party for that other location off the San Pedro River where there's another major roost. And that was really fun. It went really well. It was super hot that evening, but it went well. And Jim was there for that one. And they did put on the show because they do this the whole summer where they come, they leave their nesting saguaros and they come together. Many of them do, besides the ones that are possibly staying in the nest overnight to keep the eggs warm. Although I'm looking into that this summer as well. I think most of them leave and come out and roost overnight in the trees communally rather than just staying at their nests, which is very different behavior than the Eastern Martins, which is pretty fun.
Hey,
So for
Jenny,
the, yes.
we got a question from David.
Oh, sorry, I can't, well, my Zoom looks strange.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's fine. I'll just speak up. If they're roosting now, when do they raise young?
So that's a great question. So the roosting thing is super interesting because they seem to come in and communally roost even when they're nesting. So I have been checking saguaros the last few days. Many of the nests are at the point where they have staked a claim. They have a saguaro already in mind. They kind of do that. They start that behavior as soon as they show up in early to mid June, and some of them start showing up in May, and they usually start laying eggs about nowish, kind of early July, and then they start having chicks by late July into August, and then they usually fledge by the end of August. So that's kind of their basic time frame, but we have observed them coming into roost during the breeding season, like while they're nesting. So sometimes it seems like it's more males than females coming into roost because like the female with the brood patch may be sitting on the eggs overnight. But there is this phenomenon where we're tracking it with temperature gauges, and I do have temperature gauges in several active nests right now, trying to figure this out. It seems like the saguaros are almost self-heating, just the way saguaros buffer during the day, where it's cooler inside the cavity at night than, or excuse me, in the day than ambient temperature. It's cooler during the day. That lags and tracks so that during the evening it's actually warmer in the cavity than ambient air. So they're like a self-cooling during the day, self-heating during the night kind of cavity, which is very interesting. And I think unless it's a chilly night, I think the females also don't stay in the nest overnight, usually. Um, I'm trying to confirm that. I have trackers in saguaros right now, but I suspect that's what some of them are doing. Now, some of them may, if it's, I don't know, some of them may sit on eggs overnight, but either way, there is definitely a lot of martins coming into roost all summer, even while they're nesting, which is really interesting. And it is going to help us catch birds. And the reason we schedule, because we talked to a lot of experts on this, the reason we're scheduling it mid-July, not sooner, is because we want them to have chicks, not eggs. Because if they get distressed or by being caught, the chances of them abandoning a nest once they have chicks is virtually zero. And if you catch them too early, it might put them off. So where our timing is, a lot of it has to do with this breeding timing. So they're kind of nesting. They're starting now. I did find one nest with eggs 2 mornings ago and several nests that just had green leaves and no eggs yet. So they're probably laying eggs nowish.
And Jenny, one more thing. Tim just followed up saying, Jenny, if it would be useful, I think the thermal camera I have been testing would be effective at detecting which saguaro cavities are occupied, both at night and in the morning. And the
That's super
camera
cool.
does show that the saguaros hold the heat well into the night.
That's cool. Thank you, Tim. Yes, let's play with that. Yeah, that'd be great to go try something like that out. So yeah, they really seem to hold on to heat really well. When we had trackers in temperature gauges called eye buttons in saguaros a couple years ago, we had a bunch of them out, and it was astonishing to look at the data that how warm cavities stayed up until the early hours of the morning. Like kind of crazy, considering there's a hole in there, like a cavity entrance. It was kind of crazy how warm they stayed. So pretty interesting stuff. No wonder they really like the saguaros and come so far to nest up here. You have self-cooling in the day, self-heating at night kind of cavity. It's kind of crazy. Because first I wonder why did they come all this way? And then when we started getting all that data, I was like, oh, okay. I guess that would be kind of hard to replace. A plastic gourd nest isn't going to do that, you know. Got to be a saguaro or a cardone. So I just want to briefly touch on this wintering thing, where this is a map that PMCA put out based on this tracker information we've gathered over the last few years, where the purple is supposed to be the eastern population, eastern martins, and they breed throughout the entire eastern US up into Canada. And then the pink is just sort of migration stopover areas. And then they winter in a huge area, which you would expect with so many birds. And it's pretty much the Amazon basin, kind of the Amazon forest here on this habitat map. Now, the forest martins breed up here in the coastal Pacific coast, United States, up into Canada, and certain forested high elevation areas in Arizona, New Mexico, Colorado, and Utah. But other than that, they're really restricted to sort of really good forest habitat. And they winter right here on this coastal part of Brazil, this Atlantic coast part of Brazil, which is called Atlantic forest here in this habitat map. But what's really interesting is where our birds are. The desert martins, of course, breed in Arizona, Sonora, down into Baja, have a very important stopover site here in Sonora as well as Sinaloa. And then they go all the way down here, which is known as it's savanna and dry forest. And this is known as the dry diagonal of Brazil. So I'm trying to learn more about this from like Brazilian biologists, but it's very, very interesting to see that they're wintering in kind of the driest section of Brazil. It's very, very cool. Just exactly what, once I thought about it, it kind of really does make sense for a desert martin to be in sort of like as close as Brazil gets to desert, which still looks pretty lush when I look at it on street imagery. So the plan was for March of 2026. Yes. What year are we? Yeah, 2026, to try and catch birds here in this tree in a particular park in Brazil. That was a known roosting site that's within the area that the desert martins are known to winter, based on all the data we've gotten in the past. So that went really well. I actually have a video I want to show you guys of what happened in March of 2026 when our partners went down to Brazil to catch purple martins. So this is how this went in March of this year of 2026 to catch martins in Brazil using it was so this is our Brazilian partners as well as Joe Segrist from PMCA, Purple Martin Conservation Association out of Pennsylvania, who's been instrumental in this ongoing project because he has all the federal permits and knowledge on putting these trackers on. This is where that tree was in the park. There's that big pond, and they come in to roost at a tree in the middle of the pond. So they set up nets along the edge of the pond, and birds were getting caught. So this is what we're going to try. We're going to put nets along the trees that they come to roost in here in Saurita, and a percentage of them will fly into the net is the plan. So they do this here too. They zoom around for 15, 20 minutes before they go into roost. So then they got to get them out of the net. We use a very similar strategy of the extending poles with the mist nets. Birds out, put them in a little bird bag. starting to roost. So that's Joe with Purple Martin Conservation System. He flew down to Brazil to help with this. And then I get birds out. Birds just hanging in the net. You ever help with a banding station? It's so exciting to see birds in the net. So they're doing all the processing, and they have so many young people and students involved in this progress, in this process, and lots of people helping. Putting on the tracker. This is why we really need Joe, because he knows how to do this properly to protect the birds. Tori helps us with this too. Tori's done a ton of training on this as well. And they use that string they're using is a special Teflon string that they use to attach it. And then a tiny little sample of blood, and that's where all the genetics work. Just take a tiny drop of blood. The ongoing genetic study. I don't know if they did it on these birds. I think Joe told me they didn't. Any of the birds that had trackers on them, they didn't take a feather sample just to not do anything to bog them down. Some of them had feather samples. And they're doing fecal samples too for someone else's study. There's a lot of research coming out of this. There it is with the tracker on it. Off it goes. So it was really great. And this was a really fun video that one of the partners put together and put on Instagram, which was super fun. And okay, how do I restart my... There we go. Okay, so that was the park where they caught them. And then they were off. All the trackers were on birds, and they stayed in Pernambuco, which is where they were caught, a lot longer than I thought they were going to stay in Pernambuco. So March 13th, when they caught the birds, to April 1st, they were all still in Pernambuco. And I'm like, okay. And I kept tracking it, and they would mostly go, many of them would go back to that same park every night to roost. But then some of them started going to other reservoirs and other lakes to roost overnight, which was kind of interesting. When I'd zoom in, you could see that they were in other areas, but always a body of water. But then April, we had some movement. By the month of April, some of them started moving north. So these three blue lines and the green line bird started moving north, but the yellow one and the dark blue just stayed. They just stayed in the park, and by the end of April, they were still there. And I was thinking, oh my gosh, because I always get reports every year that martins have shown up in Arizona at saguaros by the first few days of May. I always get reports now, but now I realize that that's just some of the birds. Most of them, at least the ones with trackers on them, none of them were in Arizona by early May. None of them. They were all still in South America. I think they're actually all still in Brazil by the end of April. So, but then the month of May, they really started moving. They moved really fast throughout May. They went, but you could see how different their timing was. By the end of May, a few of the birds, one of them had made it actually up into the United States. One was almost there, one was in Baja, but two or three of them were still in Central America by the end of May. So really, really interesting to see just how different that was. Yeah, so I do want to now show you the live map, but I also just want to briefly mention we're working closely now with partners in Brazil. So Eduardo at a university, this university here in the bottom right corner, CISA, it's always called, Centro de Investigación Científica and Educación in Baja. So it's the CISA University in Baja. Eduardo's a professor down there, and we got a grant with him, the SW Southwest Border Region Protection Program grant from the National Park Service, which is only for cross-border work. We also have a grant from Game and Fish this year as well. And that's helping especially Eduardo's efforts to put trackers on birds in Baja as well. So we're doing a joint effort where he's right now, we shared resources with them to use poles and cameras to look inside nesting cardones, as well as cliffside nesting that may be happening in islands in the Gulf of California. And they're doing similar work to what we're doing up here in the Saguaros, as well as going to put some trackers on birds themselves. So Joe will probably fly down to Baja at some point while he's here this summer. So let's go to the live. Let's go to the live one. All right, here it is. So right in the middle of all this too, tracking this spring and summer, Lotek, the company, did a whole revamp of their system, of course. But now it works actually pretty good, pretty well now, but there was a few weeks there where it wasn't really working very well at all while they were redoing it. But this is where all the birds ended up. So this is a current view of the last 30 days. Three of the martins with tags ended up very close to Arizona. So we have one that's in Arizona, and it is right here in a very interesting spot. It's just west of Nogales, just west of the Babaquivari Mountains, so a little bit west of Altar Valley. And this bird's actually on the Tohono O'odham Reservation out here south of 3 Points. So it's gone a little bit southwest of 3 Points, this bird. And it has been spending a lot of time up here. It does take little trips. It goes into Mexico sometimes. It also goes north of that Ajo highway going towards Cells. So kind of between 3 Points and Cells south is where this bird seems to have settled for nesting. Two of them are in Sonora. And when I zoom in very close into these areas, it does look like beautiful Sonoran desert habitat with large saguaros. So that's where these two martins ended up. Kind of territories very near, kind of near each other. East, one a little more further west than the yellow one. But one of the birds, very interestingly, ended up in Baja. So this bird has just settled in Baja, which is really cool. So he's went down to see Eduardo, who's in a university down here in La Paz. But this bird is just nesting right here in Baja, which is really, really cool. But we did have a few surprises along the way, one of which especially was this bird. We had a bird just go a total, once they hit South America, just do a totally different direction and just go east across the Gulf of America, Gulf of Mexico, went straight across the Gulf and went to Houston, just west of Houston. So this turned out to be an Eastern Martin, presumably. Now it's so weird that he was roosting with the desert martins in this particular spot that's much further east than the Eastern Martins typically winter. But it just goes to show there's been a really interesting mixing of birds that's happened where they're just roosting in different spots. So let's see if it'll let me go further back, because we also had one that went through Colorado and stayed up there, which was a really interesting one. Now that tracker was being a little iffy, so we're looking into that one to make sure that's accurate. But one of them seems to have been a forest mark. So this has been great. It's been a huge success. And these four, no, five, was it five, three, four? Yeah, these five trackers are actually still sending signal now, are still working. So we'll be able to kind of watch what they get up to. God, it's like so much data that's having trouble. This new interface has a little trouble sometimes. I have to let it load sometimes, which is why I took some screenshots to make sure we'd be able to see the details of what happened. But while this is happening, okay, rejoining the server. Those I see that message a lot. But are there any other questions so far, Erica, in the chat? Okay. So I do, while this is sort of redoing its thing, does anyone have any questions or any thoughts on what's happened so far?
So, Jenny,
Yeah, Tim.
I think it's interesting that if you'd been successful and put the taggers on just the birds in the Sonoran, you wouldn't have learned this.
That's actually true, Tim. That's actually a
Yeah,
really good point
you
because
might
we
have
want to go
learned
to
more
plan
by
B.
having a problem.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. What's also interesting to me is none of these birds that were caught at that particular park ended up in Tucson, Green Valley, Sahuarita, or north of Tucson. There's a huge colony near Mammoth, north of Tucson on the San Pedro River. It's none of these birds ended up there. So I wonder if our birds go to a slightly different part of this wintering range in Brazil, because that would be very interesting to see.
Jenny, we have a question from David. How different genetically are the 3 or 2 populations?
So I only have preliminary like information from discussing with Tori the genetics. So Tori has not released anything like officially, or like I haven't seen any charts or anything, but Tori told me that when she's running genetics on all 3 subspecies, which no one's done ever, that when she last winter, I think this last winter, she was in New York at a different university for a few months working on this genetics project. She told me that when she does the genetics, that of all 3 subspecies, they form 3 very particular clusters that are separate from each other. So the desert martins have almost no overlap with the forest martins, with the eastern martins. So there's 3 particular clusters. Now I don't have any like numbers or anything more detailed at the moment. There will be more information on that coming soon. But it's definitely looking like there is a lot of genetic justification for these birds being considered separate species. Now, that would be submitted. This next steps would be when the time is right in the future, submitting that to the AOS and American Ornithological Society and seeing what they think. But it's looking like they are very genetically distinct. But I only have that as very sort of insider information shared with from the researcher. All right, come on, you can do it, thing. If it'll do that, that'd be great because I want to see the whole thing. Okay. So I know I've sent you guys some images of this in the past, but I thought it'd be fun to just sort of see it month by month because I hadn't done it that way before, as well as sort of get the full picture of what's going on with these birds as they migrated north. And our plan is to, we have researchers already slotted, Tori and Joe are planning on coming out later in July and staying through August and helping us with catching martins, depending on what the schedule works out to be for the pecan grove on when they want us in there. And then they'll also be going down to Baja and helping catch birds in Baja, Mexico, which will be very, very interesting to see how that plays out. Because what if the Baja birds winter in a slightly different location than the Arizona birds? Like it could be very interesting. And from that, we'll have covered kind of the furthest extents of the breeding range of these birds because they don't really go much further south than Baja for breeding, and they don't really go much further north than certainly not much further north than Mammoth area, that area. But getting Sarita and Baja will be a really good spread of these birds. And you're quite right, Tim. I hadn't thought of that. We wouldn't have realized that one, they mix with a few eastern and forest martins in there in Brazil if we hadn't done it the other direction. So that is a very interesting thought. Thank you, Tim. All right, well, this isn't cooperating very well. So I do have a nice refined image that I got showing the whole route that I think I already sent out, but I'll send it out again because it's a really cool image. So yeah, this system's struggling a little bit, but this is our most current data. These 3 up right on the U.S.-Mexico border area, one in Houston area, and then one that has just settled in the Cardone forests of Baja.
Jenny, I'm a little
Yes,
surprised how much these birds are wandering.
they wander a lot. They wander a
Yeah,
lot.
that's
Yeah,
over a big area.
huge area. Now, some of it might be, I'm wondering, I really hope these trackers keep functioning, even though they're going in and out of like saguaro cavities or Cardone cavities, or the Houston bird, presumably a gourd or something like a nest box cavity. I really hope they keep working because I'm wondering if they will start wandering less once they have eggs and chicks, which should be about nowish. Um, or maybe they do wander every day. These birds have to move a fair amount of distance to get access to water every day. Most of them do. Now, some of these birds are lucky enough, like some desert martins are lucky enough to find saguaros right near water. But for the most part, saguaros are not near water, right? It's relatively rare to find that. So we did do a GIS study with a graduate student a couple years ago. Well, I was an intern and she wanted to work with martins, so I gave her all of our martin data on nesting saguaros, and she did estimates of distance each of those nesting saguaros were from water. And they were more likely to be between 1 and 2 miles or 2 and 3 miles from water than they were from 0 to 1 miles from water, which is really interesting. Now, the eastern martins, a lot of work's been done on this. The eastern martins are most likely to be 0 to 1 miles from water. So that's another difference. And for water, we counted, they will use water that's relatively small. They will use a cattle tank or cattle pond. They will use a swimming pool. They will use, the San Pedro River or a creek or, the swimming pools one is always interesting, where they'll come in and use swimming pools. I see this a lot on the west side of Tucson, where you have those really high-end homes right near Tucson Mountain Park. And you'll see the martins going up there to those, million-dollar homes using the swimming pool and then coming and sitting on the wires to preen. So they do need water, they do need access to water, but they're willing to go relatively far to get it. So I think the fact they roam around is just so they can find the prey and the water they need. That's my theory. We'll see though. I wonder if their footprint tightens once they have chicks or expands. Maybe they need more food and it gets bigger. I don't know. But I hope the trackers keep working and we can answer some of these questions. That'd be really interesting. Any other thoughts or comments?
Are there any martins nesting at the Mason Center?
So in that area, yes, we have always had this thing's being fussy. I'm gonna just stop sharing my screen. We've always had good luck with martins in that area. I don't last summer, and as far as I know, this summer, Oli has been watching that one for me, but we don't have martins nesting in Mason proper the last couple of years. But they do like that county land that's just south of Mason. They nest there. And so we've been having some nests there the last few years. And there's several nesting pairs up at Arthur Pack Park. So they cruise over Mason a lot. And we have a nest box set up there for them as well. That's the one only that keeps a camera on. So they cruise around the Mason area, but we used to have them nesting on the Mason property, but they haven't the last few years. I'm not exactly sure why. They can get real sensitive to specific saguaros. So from 2020 to 2021, we had a lot of saguaro die off, and I think or arms falling off. There was one saguaro that they did like to nest in on Mason, where the particular arm they nested in fell off after that drought. So we had a lot of that. We had a lot of like areas where they were pretty reliable. Suddenly they weren't nesting in anymore. Either I had whole saguaros fall down that they would nest in, or sometimes the arm falling off. Because the arm is going to be weakened by having a huge cavity in it. So no, they're not on Mason, but they're near Mason.
Well, I was thinking I would pop in there with my camera
Oh,
and
okay.
just test it a little bit. So,
Yeah, let me get with Oleatim and find out exactly which ones they're nesting in. And once I know exactly which ones, I'll let you know.
okay, thanks.
Yeah, and the Pima County land that we utilize, that's just south of Mason, we have full right of entry access into that. So it's like functionally kind of Masony, but it's not technically Mason. But there are several nests in there the last few years consistently. So I'll find out if they're active this year.
Jenny, this is Jim. Did you get my email this week about this Martin
This
nesting?
Martin nesting.
Yeah,
Yes.
those are off of Parklink Road up there. About 2 miles west of, or 2 miles, yeah, west of 79
Okay.
on the
Yeah, Jim, I'd love to
Squeezo
get with
Road.
you. If you want, we can go up there and we can scope it. If you
It,
is there
it,
access
it,
there?
it's 30 to 40 foot high where that
Oh,
hole
never
is
mind. That's the problem. There are some nests
at.
that get away from me because if it's over, especially if it's over 30, my pulls only go to 30. So if it's over 30, I can't really get to them. So
There
yeah,
was a second location. We found a pair, and we couldn't find where they were nesting, but the swirls were definitely a lot lower. So maybe we'll keep track of that and see if we can
sure.
find their nests there.
Yeah, if
So,
you find a cavity, we can go in there and we can scope it and see what's going on.
okay. Yep. But they're definitely nesting out there. I think they're coming all the way over here for the water because there's no other water around the area
That makes total sense.
unless there's pools or something over there at the houses somewhere. So,
That makes total sense. I've wondered a lot about this where water, like I wonder if the martins have shifted over the last like century where they nest because where we have water has changed, right? We have swimming pools and cattle tanks and golf courses and that kind of thing where it provides water where they can then nest near it. But in the past, I've wondered, I think the big colony at Mammoth has been there for a long, long time because it's right near the river. The colony out at Colossal Cave, right near that natural spring area, that's probably been there for centuries, if not longer, since there's a natural water source right there. I bet you they used to be a lot more near the rivers before we started putting water in the middle of desert where they can then utilize it.
Yeah, there are definitely cattle tanks fairly close to
Yeah.
that locations up
Yeah, they
there.
like cattle tanks. I see them a lot at cattle tanks when when I'm in the middle of nowhere looking for them.
Yeah. Jenny, on those trackers, when you had those pictures up, there was little points ever so often. How often are you guys recording their location?
Oh, that's
Yeah.
a great question. So I did ask Lotek about this. It's we don't get to determine that. So how the trackers work is they communicate with satellites, and how many points they take a day depends on two things. It depends on how much charge the unit has, and that has not seemed to have been a problem at all. These units stay wonderfully charged with the solar panels on the back. And also it's how much access, like where the satellites are placed. If it has a good connection, it takes a point. And it will take, I've tried to calculate it out. It'll take anywhere from 5 to 10 points a day on these birds.
Mhm.
So it varies based on charge and satellite availability, but it takes a lot of data. These devices, and it sort of just decides on its own when it's going to record points. All right. I don't know if you have any thoughts, Erica.
No, I'm really just along for the ride. This is
It's
great.
fun, huh? It's great. It's the best thing I've done in a long time. It's so much fun. All right. So we are planning on working on this again this summer, and got, everything in motion, and we're got more trackers on the way.
Yeah. Do you want to tell them how many trackers we're planning on doing? And
Yeah, so we are doing, I just got the information on this. We have a lot of trackers ordered. We have I think it was like 18 trackers ordered. Now this is in partnership with Mexico as well. Now some of those trackers will be for Baja, but most of them are for us because we have several sort of wheels in motion. We're also partnering with Arizona Game and Fish for their own project where they're working at Davis-Monthan Air Force Base, where they will have a few trackers that they're paying for that will probably join if they can't catch birds on the base, which I don't think they'll be able to. It's difficult to catch them at the Saguaros. They'll probably join our efforts in Sahuarita as well. So we could have up to 20 trackers in motion this summer of birds heading south between us and Baja. That's a lot. That's gonna be a lot of data coming in. That'll be great.
That is awesome. I'm glad to see it expand like
So
this.
cool.
It's so exciting.
That's so cool.
yeah, so I think the only thing, we'll present to you all right now is that if you do want to continue to sponsor a tracker, one of these new ones, I think at least there's 5 or 6 that need, sponsorship to help cover those costs. And either way, we'll keep updating you because you've been a part of this project, but wanting to put that out there that we do want to make sure that we're trying to cover the cost fully of what it takes to get all this great information.
Yeah, and I just spoke with Joe and with Purple Martin Conservation Association. All the ordering goes through him because he has a relationship with Lotek and he knows all the specs on everything. The track, I see the question here now that I stopped sharing screen. Did the cost come down? Well, the cost has stayed pretty much the same only because Joe's organization has graciously covered the tariffs on these. They are coming from New Zealand. So they went up slightly, but there's not, instead of $2,000 each, now they're 2,100. That's what Joe's billing us for. There was, I don't know how much, but all the tariff costs he covered, as well as he's continued to cover what they call like the satellite fees for this. So the fact that we can view it on the interface has a cost associated with it from the company, which makes sense because they have satellite costs they have to deal with. But Joe is also graciously covering that again as well this year. That's really nice of him. So the cost has stayed pretty much the same, just slightly more, which I was really worried it was going to be a lot more expensive because of tariffs. But Joe has sort of eaten that increase for us, which I really appreciate. So we're looking to sponsor a few trackers, and they're still in the about $2,000.
Yeah, I guess I would echo Melody's comments that we sort of thought, and it's proven true, that you get a lot of data for the investment here, though. A lot of insights, even though it's small numbers to start. We're just learning so much.
We are. It's shocking how much data we're getting off this investment. I also really like this methodology too because it impacts so few birds. So like banding stations, right? You're doing tons of birds to get a little bit of data back. This is very few birds to get a mountain of data, which I really like that. And that's another feature of this project I'm really happy about. Is we're just talking about catching, very few birds, getting sort of the biggest, strongest looking ones, putting trackers on them, and then sending them on their way and getting a mountain of data. It's pretty exciting change in a lot of these bird studies now these days, which is really awesome.
And Jenny, are you trying to get, does it matter if you're trying to get like a half female, half male, or does it?
So we do definitely put some on females.
Mhm.
But so Joe and Tori make that determination when we catch birds. So if we have a choice, say we catch, 50 birds and we can sort of look at them. They kind of look at them. They go for adults over first, second year birds more. They're bigger, they're stronger, they're more likely to make the full migration. If it comes down to two and one weighs a little more, they'll probably go with the beefier one. So it does tend to be more than half males, but we do also do females as well, kind of the beefiest females. It's just to try to give them the best shot at making it, and it's been working. Almost all issues we've had have been from the trackers themselves, or when that one female didn't make it, she just couldn't get over the Andes Mountains, which is apparently a big problem for many martins. Even the eastern ones have trouble getting past that big mountain range. You just got to go over it or you got to go around it. It's just such a hazard on the way. So Joe's methods worked of starting like, okay, you're heavier, I'm going to put it on you, has worked really well. And we've had great success. So I'm really looking forward to continuing that this summer. Okay. Well, I hope you guys have enjoyed this rundown of everything. It's been great fun. It is going to be featured kind of briefly in the next Vermilion Flycatcher, just with kind of the final map. Oh, there it is. I haven't seen it yet, Erica. That one, that issue.
Just was delivered
Can you
while
go
you
to
were
the last
talking.
page?
Yeah.
You go to the woohoo.
The woohoo. Let's see.
There it is. There's the map. So we're going to share with the public just sort of the general map showing the overall route and a little rundown of what happened.
Yeah.
So it's very exciting. And I'm really, really excited for how this goes this summer. So, and I definitely appreciate all of your support that made this season possible. And we'll see what happens in the future. But this summer is going to be like our big push. We want to get a lot of trackers on birds. We have good information of them coming north. We need a lot more of them going south. So this will be kind of a big push, and we'll see what happens next summer. This may be kind of the last big summer of this because we're just sort of all in. We got Baja on board. We're getting them on birds in Salrita. We may try to catch a few birds at Davis Mothin and just like watch these birds go south. This is gonna be the big summer for it into obviously into winter, but it's gonna be fun.
Jenny, what is the expected life expectancy of the trackers?
So I think they can go. They have no battery limit. So as long as the device stays intact and the antenna doesn't get like snapped or snapped off, they can just go and go for, a year, more than a year. So I'm really pleased to see that four of the trackers are still sending signals. It's still updating with data every day. So they theoretically, if the birds don't break the antenna, they could keep going, all summer into fall. Who knows? It would be fascinating to see if they go into another migration. I don't want to get too greedy here, but they could. But as long as they're sending signal, they show up on our on the interface. So they could be going. I mean, these trackers were programmed and ready to go last summer. They were on standby, but still on until March of this year, and four of them are still working. So they could keep working for months. The company's
Okay.
not sure because this is their smallest, sort of most delicate antenna for these birds. So they're not totally sure. But as long as they don't snap it, they'll just keep working.
Okay, so it's not likely to see the full both sides of the migration on a single bird.
It's
right
not
now.
super likely just because when they're nesting, it's pretty hard on the device when they're going in and out of a
Okay.
cavity. And like them getting into the cavity has really increases the chances of the antenna getting snapped. But if they get through nesting and they haven't snapped it, it should theoretically keep working as they journey south.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I think I would love to see that.
Wouldn't that be great? I really hope that happens. That'd be amazing. All right. Well, let's see here. If we don't have any other last thoughts or questions, go to the chat. Is there anything new in there? Okay. All right. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed this sort of exclusive deep dive look into what's going on, but it has been really cool. So it'll be really fun to see what happens this summer.
Thank you
Thanks so
so
much,
much.
Jenny.
Yeah,
I
thank you
really
all so much.
appreciate
And I
all
will
of
be
the
sending out the
information
recording.
here.
Yeah, thanks a bunch. Appreciated it.
All right. Thank you all so much. And again, I just really want to thank you all for your support. I really appreciate you helping. We really couldn't do this project without you. So thank you all so much.
Great. Take care.